Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking you far beyond Earth, beyond the pull of gravity and into what's quickly becoming the most expansive and, well, you could argue the most lucrative race humanity has ever entered.
It really is. We're talking about the race to commercialize the cosmos.
And it is moving at an incredible speed.
It is. So our mission today is to synthesize the sources that detail the sheer scale of this. We're looking at the potential for, unprecedented growth and these transformative opportunities.
And we're focusing on how capital, not government ambition, is shaping this new reality.
Exactly. We want to make you well informed on this because it's unfolding so fast.
And we absolutely have to start with the projection because this is the hook for the whole conversation. The sources are pretty clear. The next trillion-dollar industry is not here on Earth.
It's light years away. And the projection is that by 2030, the space economy will be worth trillions.
That timeline is just staggeringly close.
And it's not some pie-in-the-sky estimate. It's anchored in real investment trends and, crucially, the decreasing cost of access.
For centuries, capitalism was bound by gravity, right? Limited by what we could move across oceans.
That physical constraint is dissolving as we speak.
The moment the cost of launching a single kilogram into orbit just plummeted, the whole game changed.
It really did.
So we're diving into the innovations, the flow of money, the really profound ethical knots, and the surprisingly direct ways that you can participate in what some are calling the Wild West of the cosmos.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this massive shift. Historically, space exploration was, well, it's a pure government monopoly.
Right. Think Cold War, Apollo missions, the International Space Station.
All defined and financed by national agencies. NASA, the ESA, Roscosmos. It was all about national prestige.
And security, of course. It was a system built on exclusivity and just enormous budgets.
But that entire paradigm has been radically transformed over the last decade or so.
The moment private enterprise really entered the arena, everything changed.
And not just incrementally. I mean, it was a seismic shift. The modern space race is being driven by corporations.
For the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
Not nation states. And that's a crucial distinction.
Why is it so crucial?
Because it's not driven by political rivalry anymore, like in the 60s. It's driven by market forces.
Competition, innovation.
And most importantly, the acceleration of costs downward. When a single launch cost hundreds of millions of dollars, the barrier to entry was, effectively absolute for anyone outside of government.
Then you get catalysts like SpaceX with their reusable rockets, or Blue Origin with their approach to logistics. They didn't just build slightly better rockets.
No, they fundamentally re-engineered the economics of getting off the planet.
Yeah.
And that lowered cost barrier is what unlocked this entire ecosystem we're seeing now.
The $300 billion space economy of the past was built on government contracts.
And the multi-trillion-dollar economy of the future is being built on commercial activity.
That's the key distinction, isn't it? This isn't just about launching rockets anymore.
No, not at all. We are talking about an entire complex ecosystem forming right above us.
Like what are we talking about specifically?
Okay, so it's orbital logistics, literally moving things and people around in orbit. It's massive satellite constellations for communication.
Space tourism, which is already a thing.
It is. And then looking a bit further out, you have in-orbit servicing, cleaning up space debris, and eventually asteroid mining. It's a complete value chain.
A layered economy, not just one industry.
Precisely. And the sources are clear that this trajectory, the drive toward commercial investment and cheaper launches, is what's fueling that surge into the multi-trillion-dollar range so soon.
So the mindset has completely flipped.
Completely. This is not exploration, it's market creation.
Yeah.
Nations explored. Corporations are creating markets where none existed.
And they're responding to global demand for data, defense, connectivity.
Things that only sophisticated, privately managed space infrastructure can reliably deliver.
Okay, if that's the marketplace, let's talk about the fuel, the capital. Billions are just pouring into space ventures right now.
And the sources of that capital are fascinatingly diverse. You're seeing major venture capital funds, public markets.
Often through things like SPACs, right?
Yes, and large sovereign wealth pools.
Yeah.
The money is moving with extreme speed.
Let's pause on that term, SPACs. For anyone who needs a quick definition, why are these special purpose acquisition companies so common in this sector?
That's a great question, because it really highlights the risk appetite here. A SPAC is basically a shell company that raises money publicly, then uses that cash to acquire a private company, taking it public much faster than a traditional IPO.
Which is attractive for a cash-hungry industry like space tech.
Exactly. It lets them raise huge amounts of capital based on projections, on vision, rather than on decades of proven profits. The capital moves at the speed of light.
So investors are backing these long-term visionaries, but what are they actually buying? You made the point earlier that the product isn't space itself.
No, the product is what space enables. We need to look at the immediate, tangible benefits that justify those billions.
The most obvious one being the satellite constellations, right? Mostly in LEO, delivering global internet.
Right. LEO, or low Earth orbit.
And let's clarify that too. Why is LEO the big battleground?
So LEO is the closest orbital real estate 100 to 1,200 miles up. The key is its proximity means very low latency, the delay in data transmission.
And that low latency is critical for things like fast internet, high-frequency trading.
And real-time defense applications, absolutely. It is the commercial sweet spot, which, by the way, also makes it the most congested.
And beyond internet, we have Earth mapping systems for agriculture, security, climate tracking.
All relying on that orbital vantage point.
Yeah.
And of course, space-based surveillance, which is increasingly a private sector service.
So the return on investment happens on Earth based on services from above. But this is where we hit that huge friction point.
The speed of capital versus the slowness of policy.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Capital is moving at light speed, building all this infrastructure, but policy is
still stuck in bureaucracy on the ground. And that raises a huge question. Regulation is wildly unclear.
We have the Outer Space Treaty from 1967, but that's ancient in this context.
It is. It was written when only governments were involved, and the main concerns were, nuclear weapons in orbit and the idea of mankind's common heritage. It has no framework for commercial claims.
So we have these massive regulatory holes. What are the key things that need to be defined, like right now?
Ownership is number one. If you pull 100 tons of platinum from an asteroid, is that yours?
Liability too. If a private rocket fails and hits another country's satellite.
Who's responsible?
Yeah.
Exactly. And territorial rights.
Yeah.
Who owns orbiting infrastructure? Can space just be commercialized forever with no limits?
It feels like history repeating itself. The high seas, the American West, cyberspace. The law always lags behind the rush to claim resources.
But the imbalance this time feels extreme. Capital is moving so much faster than policy, building things and making claims before any international body can legislate rules.
So you risk a situation where the rules are just set by whoever gets there first.
Corporate first movers setting the operational norms, rather than democratically agreed upon regulation.
Isn't that inherently risky, though? Are we looking at a potential space bubble where companies are valued based on resources they might not even be legally allowed to own yet?
Oh, that risk is absolutely baked into the valuations, especially with SPACs. The bet is that the sheer economic incentive will force international policy to catch up.
So the hope is they'll legalize resource extraction through licensing.
Right. Treat it like deep-sea fishing rights or offshore oil drilling. It's a very high-stakes bet that the legal framework will eventually follow the money.
Speaking of resource extraction, that leads us right to the idea that the next industrial revolution might not even happen on Earth.
The concept of in situ resource utilization, or ISRU.
Which is just a fancy way of saying using what's already there.
Exactly. It's the ultimate efficiency move. Why pay tens of thousands of dollars per pound to haul materials from Earth when you can just use what you find in space?
Okay, so first target, the moon. We're talking about extracting lunar regolith. What makes moon dirt so valuable?
Well, lunar regolith, the soil is rich in useful stuff. It's got rare metals, significant amounts of oxygen you can extract, and compounds you can use to 3D print structures right there on the moon.
And then there's the more futuristic stuff, like helium-3.
Right, and helium-3 is tied to fusion energy concepts. It's an isotope that's very rare on Earth, but abundant on the moon.
And it's often cited as the ideal fuel for clean fusion reactors.
Which is still a theoretical technology, but if it's unlocked, it solves global energy needs. So lunar mining is a bet on both immediate utility and revolutionary future energy.
And then you look beyond the moon, out to the asteroids.
Which are basically floating treasure chests. The sources project that single asteroids could carry trillions of dollars worth of platinum, rhodium, other rare metals.
Metals that are critical for our electronics and industry here on Earth.
Absolutely. But the shift isn't just where we get materials, it's how we build things. Zero-gravity production.
This is where manufacturing gets really interesting.
It's fascinating because manufacturing without gravity is just superior for certain materials. On Earth, gravity causes sedimentation, convection, stress on crystal structures.
All things that cause imperfection.
Correct. In zero-G, you get rid of that. You can create ultra-pure materials, like perfect crystals. The sources mention pharmaceutical compounds being purer, more effective.
Superior fiber optics that lose less data.
Yeah, and various biological materials that just grow better in that pristine environment.
It's like the ultimate clean room, opening up a whole new category of high-margin products that can only be built up there.
And to support all this, we're seeing the supply chain infrastructure forming right now. This is where the ecosystem idea becomes real.
We're talking orbited fuel depots,
Modular stations, dedicated factories in LEO, and commercial landing pads on the moon.
So the romantic idea of exploration has fully morphed into, well, interplanetary supply chain management.
That's it. If you need to refuel your mining ship on its way to an asteroid, you'll stop at a private orbital depot. This isn't exploration anymore. It's highly capitalized, integrated supply chain formation.
Every breakthrough this big has consequences. So as we build this cosmic economy, we have to talk about the ethical quandaries and the existential threats.
Starting with the most immediate one, debris.
Right. The risk of space debris and collisions is one of the biggest long-term threats to this whole thing.
We're adding thousands and thousands of satellites to LEO. The collision probability is going up exponentially. A dead satellite becomes a high-velocity bullet.
And if those collisions cascade, we face what's called Kessler syndrome.
And we need to underscore how dangerous this is.
Yeah.
Kessler syndrome is a tipping point. One collision creates thousands of pieces of debris. Those pieces cause more collisions.
A runaway chain reaction.
The result would be a dense belt of shrapnel that could make low Earth orbit completely unusable for decades.
Which is terrifying. It would essentially collapse the global internet, cripple defense, and stop climate tracking in its tracks. All because of our own mess.
So the debris threat is physical, but the ethical threat is philosophical. It goes back to that ownership debate.
Right. If a corporation pulls minerals from the moon, who does that property belong to? Do we stick to the idea that space is the shared heritage of all mankind?
Or does the modern economic impulse win out, and private property rights just extend beyond our planet?
Companies are obviously pushing for the second option.
Of course. They argue that without the promise of exclusive property rights, the billions needed for extraction will never materialize. They want it treated like oil or land. First come, first served.
And that debate plays directly into global geopolitics. Space is now a domain of competition and influence, just like the high seas.
And nations are positioning themselves, often using these commercial companies as proxies for their national interest. It's not just about who can launch anymore.
It's about who controls the infrastructure in orbit.
Exactly. You see these clear national strategies forming, seeking dominance over satellite networks, planning lunar bases, forming new alliances.
Alliances based on shared space infrastructure, not land borders. It's like a 3D chess game being played out over our heads.
It is. The sources are clear. The economic imperative has inextricably tied national power to space dominance.
It's easy to discuss this in terms of massive corporations, but let's make this personal. How do you, the listener, get a stake in the stars?
And the good news is, the space economy is absolutely not just for billionaires anymore. Ordinary individuals are much closer to participation than ever.
How does that work practically? Do I have to buy shares in some volatile launch company?
That's one way, but there are safer, more diversified paths. You have publicly listed space tech companies that do everything from data analytics to component manufacturing.
And there are ETFs, right? Exchange-traded funds.
Exactly. Aerospace ETFs that pool investments across dozens of companies, which spreads out the risk. And we're even seeing venture platforms that give accredited investors access to early-stage startups.
So you don't need to be a venture capitalist to invest in the infrastructure being built above us.
Not at all. And you certainly don't need to be an astronaut to find a career here.
Right. The sources highlight a huge range of jobs that are not about flying rockets.
Robotics and software engineering are obvious, but the really big growth areas are data science analyzing all that information, flooding back from orbit space agriculture for long missions, aerospace logistics, and critically, space law and infrastructure economics.
It's the supporting industries that are going to define this new frontier. So, ultimately, what's the influence of all this on life down here on Earth?
This is the so what of it all. The investment filters down to faster, universally available internet. It gives us more granular, climate-accurate data to mitigate global risks.
It fuels the development of new energy systems like fusion.
And it enables the creation of high-value materials that were just impossible to build before.
So the space economy isn't just transforming industry, it is fundamentally transforming society. It's a generational shift in human enterprise.
We have watched capitalism moves through oceans, conquer continents, and define cyberspace. Now it moves beyond the planet, dissolving the very constraint of gravity that once limited our ambition.
That is a phenomenal thought to end on. If you want to stay ahead of this next trillion-dollar shift, we encourage you to research these technologies and follow the trends. The future is unfolding rapidly above us.
And as you think about this new cosmic canvas and the regulatory vacuum we discussed, ask yourself this question, which is at the heart of the whole debate. Do you believe space should belong to everyone as humanity's collective heritage, or should its resources be privatized, just like land and oil?
Because whether we agree on the answer or not, the future isn't just above us soon, it will be owned, traded, and developed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.